Welcome to Coffee Break with Rachel Vigil, taking a daily look at the biggest stories in Denver sports and interacting live with you, the Coffee Break fam. So sit back, relax, grab a cup of joe, and enjoy your coffee break. Here's your host, Rachel Vigil.
I've tried to fully digest the news that we found out yesterday just before Game 4 between the Avs and the Stars, with Valeri Nichushkin entering Stage 3 of the NHL and NHLPA assistant or player assistance program. And it's been a bit of a whirlwind, if I'm going to be completely honest with you. Hearing that news, I was completely shocked. I was driving into the game last night, did not expect it at all. Will Petersen, who's about to join us here very shortly, is the one who sent it in our work group chat. And at first, I was so angry. And I was like, are you kidding me? Like, this is happening yet again. And then, of course, you think about the player element of it, or the human element, I guess I should say, as he's a person who clearly is dealing with an issue. You think about his family. You think about his teammates now who are going to have to deal with the repercussions of this. And it's just got me kind of all up in, I don't know, this weird situation where I don't really know how to feel. And so I feel like when you have those type of situations, there's no better reason than to sit down, grab a mic, talk to all of your friends and hang out with them. And then we'll bring in Will Petersen too, and kind of be able to talk about those feelings and doing so openly, because there is so many different ways. So we will bring in our very own Will Petersen to have him hang with us for just a little. Will, good morning. But let's just be honest. Nichushkin, we can get to that whole situation. The way the Avs played last night, it was not an excuse at all. Nichushkin cannot be an excuse, because you still have some seriously good, talented players with Cale Makar, Nathan MacKinnon, Mikko Rantanen out on the ice. It's not an excuse that can be acceptable for how the Avs played last night.
Yeah, Jared Bednar said as much to you and I and 25 other members of the Denver media last night. We are not going to use this as an excuse, but I will use it as an excuse for them, Rachel. I mean, they, like you said, they are humans too, and they learned in real time when we learned. I mean, remember, these guys go to morning skate. Yep. It was 10:30 yesterday. They go home. They're encouraged to take a nap, get some food in them, get ready to go. They come back at Ball Arena 4:35, 5 o'clock, and just a couple hours before they're supposed to play the biggest game of the season. Yep. Oh, by the way, the guy who's leading you in goals this postseason is suspended for 6 months. You'll see him at Thanksgiving if you're lucky. That is a stunning blow. I mean, apply that to anyone's life. That'd be like James Merlot, our boss, telling me, "Hey, Rachel got suspended for 6 months. You're doing coffee break, and expecting me to come do a good coffee break an hour later." I mean, that's what the equivalent was, and anyone can picture that in their job. Who is your right-hand man or right-hand woman in your job? And you come to work this morning and find out they are gone until November, but go ahead and do a good job. It's just not going to happen. And yeah, I mean, they have stunk last night. They stunk, but I don't even feel like I'm making excuses for them. I am just being honest about what happened and why they stunk. They do not get outshot 22-4 to start the game if Valeri Nichushkin plays.
I'm totally with you, but you can't. I get it is an excuse, but it can't be the excuse. You still have 3 of the best players in the world on this team. You have to be able to play better. You have to be able to motivate yourself better. You have to be able to motivate these guys better to go out there and play. It doesn't sit right with me that Nathan MacKinnon is going to say, and he would obviously never say it, but oh, this was a huge game. This wasn't just a game 2 where it doesn't matter. And when you say that in the playoffs, all the games matter, but you get my point. There had to be extra emphasis on this game. It was one of the most important games that they were going to play. Now they go to Game 5, and of course it is going to be the most important play or game, because otherwise you win or you go home. But why couldn't they motivate themselves more? Why couldn't that have been you know what? We're Nathan MacKinnon. We're Cale Makar. We're Mikko Rantanen. Yes, it sucks that Valeri Nichushkin isn't out there, but we are the best top players out there, because the way that they showed up on the ice last night, inexcusable in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people, you and I both chatted with many media members there, from the local news to other websites. I mean, everyone was at Ball Arena last night. And I definitely talked with people who said, hey, I thought this was going to be a kick in the butt, right? I thought they were going to come out flying and use this as motivation. And I told you, you and I had dinner in the media room at 7:15, and I said, I don't think so. I think they're going to be stunned by this, and I think it's going to blow up in their faces. And that's what happened. So you're right. I mean, we can explore why didn't it go the other way? Why was this not some sort of rallying cry to, hey, we don't have him. He has now let us down for a third time. Again, we all hope he gets the help he needs.
100%.
But as I told you in our post-game recap last night, this is the third time we have said we all hope Val gets the help he needs. And at some point, that message becomes a little hollow because I don't want to become disingenuous about this. He has let the Avalanche down 3 times now. So we need to keep in perspective. Of course, we're thinking about the human being, just like Jared Bednar said post-game. But we're also thinking about the Colorado Avalanche because what are they in the business of, Rachel? They are in the business of winning championships.
And getting paid a lot of money to do so.
And they will not win a championship this year. We all know that. Last night was the funeral. That's what it was. So, yeah, I think it's fair to ask, could this have been a kick in the butt? And I'll say this. He got suspended Monday night at 6:30. If he gets suspended Sunday afternoon at noon, maybe it is a kick in the butt because then they have some time to digest said news. But the timing, if we are just being honest, the timing could not have been worse for this news to drop. Literally an hour before your biggest game of the year, your guy with 9-10 goals in 8 games in the playoffs has to go away for a long, long time and may never play for the Avalanche.
I try to process all of this, and I have so many questions. And it's most likely that we have seen Val Nichushkin's last time wearing an Av sweater. Like, they removed his nameplate in the locker room. And I can't imagine that locker room welcoming him back when he's let down that team twice in the playoffs. So I have a feeling that has come to an end. But it's like, where, and again, these are just questions that are popping into my head of like, well, where does he go now? Does the NHL, help him? Do they send him off to rehab to get help? Is it you're on your own at this point? Like, this is your decision that you've made. Like, I have so many questions when it comes to, just the layout of the situation. And of course it's like, well, was he at the ice and then they had him, escorted out, or was he removed? Like, there's so many things that are going on in my head. And I'm sure a lot of Avs faithful has those questions as well. But I don't know where to stand because I do feel bad, Will. And I'm curious, like, are you in the same spot as me where you feel more disappointed, but then you think about the human element of it and you're like, well, now I feel a little bit bad that I feel disappointed. Like, where do your feelings and emotions stand right now?
Yeah, it's a totally fair question. And I know our viewers feel the same way. Like, there's not just one, like, we're in a business of opinions, right? But there's not just one quote unquote hot take you can give on this. Like, this is a therapy session between you and I this morning. Like,
it really
there is so much to unpack here that I'm not going to pretend to have all the answers. Like, if you want to ask me a strict hockey question, I will give a confident answer, right? But like, I'm human too. I have gone through all the emotions in the last, at this point, 17, 18 hours. Like, I don't have a sense of time because it's the playoffs and we don't sleep. But you know what I'm saying? Like, it just becomes this really complicated situation. And I do want to make this clear. There was some notion on social media last night that Valeri Nichushkin chose to leave the Avalanche. I want to squash that like a bug. Valeri Nichushkin was removed by the NHL. Don't let anyone out there spin this as, oh, he needed help, so he walked away. That is a load of bull junk, to quote Deion Sanders.
Yes.
He was removed by the NHL. He was there at morning skate. He was ready to play in game 4. Something happened. Again, we don't know what happened. There are various rumors about what happened. I think our audience is smart enough to connect what likely happened. And the NHL told him, you are done. You are leaving this team and you are away for 6 months. So I'm getting a little fired up about that because it really bothered me that people had the gall to say, oh, Valeri removed himself from no, he didn't. He did not remove himself from anything. That is propaganda, and that should get a truth note or a community note on Twitter. He did not remove himself from the team. The league told him, you have messed up for a third time, and you are no longer playing in these playoffs, and you're not playing hockey for a long, long time.
Oh, yeah. Who would remove themselves to not get paid for 6 months? You know what I mean? Like, that can be your answer just right there. He did not remove himself. The NHL definitely removed him. Will, and I asked this question because obviously when you do something of this sort to result in a 6-month suspension without pay, it's on you. But let's be honest. It's like, what is that saying where it's like the first time, like, shame on me, second time it's like shame on you, or whatever that saying is. Like, management had to have known or had its suspicions at least a little bit, unless Nichushkin really played this up. Is there a little bit to blame on management for not handling this situation when you clearly have a player who has gone through a lot of stuff? When we look back to the Seattle situation, we look back to him entering into the player assistance program during the regular season. Should there have been a little bit more of a watchful eye on Val Nichushkin as the playoffs arise?
I think it's a fair question to raise. I really do. But I also think you can't babysit a growing man 24/7, 365. So it's that fine line of like, yeah, we need to keep an eye on him. But also, we can't send a human to be with him and his family at 2 a.m. on a Saturday, and he's going to do what he's going to do. So I think the organization did handle it poorly in Seattle. I thought their lack of transparency last year was really frustrating. I think Jared Bednar got put in a really uncomfortable situation. Remember, Rachel, he got 9 questions in a row about Nichushkin last year, and he said it's personal, it's personal, it's personal.
Yep.
Last night, Jared Bednar was brilliant. I mean, he just answered it honestly. You and I both sat in that room and saw a man experiencing these raw emotions of knowing they're not going to win their second Stanley Cup in 3 years, and this is a massive reason why. So, yeah, I think, listen, we can be critical of the Avalanche last year. This year, I don't think so. I mean, they sent him to the player assistance program for 2 months, right? Like, you hope that 2 months is enough to get someone right. Addiction's very powerful. We all know someone in our lives that have suffered or battled through addiction, and addiction won this time around. And that is such a tough thing, because I know a lot of people want to sling arrows, and I want to sling some arrows.
Yeah.
But their season is over because a demon affected their best player for a third, or one of their best players for a third time. So, yeah, I think management, again, learned some lessons from the Seattle series. I think this time around, they handled it as well as they could, from PR to the head coach to management. And it just feels like they have to cut ties, Rachel. It just feels like Valeri Nichushkin can't be part of the plan moving forward. There's a lot of money on the line too, though. And is this a voidable offense with the contract? I don't know. I'm not an agent in the NHL. I know some people have speculated it's probably not voidable. Yeah. But at this point, A, you get him the help he needs. And then B, from a hockey perspective, you probably need that money in the cap space to go sign other players who will be there for you in the postseason, unfortunately, unlike Valeri Nichushkin.
Okay, so then we have to go back to this point. And again, this is a therapy session for both myself and Will, and I hope to everybody watching as well. But you chose Nichushkin over Kadri. Like, it's what happened that offseason, and it's really painful to look at. Now, of course, we don't know how Kadri would have done. Like, there's no being like, oh, he would have had this many goals or whatever it would have been. Like, we don't know the answers to any of that because it didn't happen. But looking back now, you're like smacking yourself in the face. And of course, it's one of those things where, of course, you never would have guessed this would have happened. But now that we do know, man, does it burn a little bit extra or sting a little bit extra knowing that you did that?
Yeah, I mean, some of us were advocating for Kadri over Nichushkin at the time, but like you said, Rachel, none of us predicted he would exit the postseason early twice in the 2 years after trying to win the cup. So hindsight's 20/20, but of course, I mean, Nazem Kadri was a great, great player. He was a rallying cry for this team. He was a leader for this team. He scored some awfully clutch goals for this team. And that's what makes it all the much more frustrating. Valeri Nichushkin is a great hockey player. Amazing. He scored great, amazing goals for this team. He is the reason they probably beat Winnipeg in round 1. Yep. And his absence is the reason they will lose to the Dallas Stars in round 2. So, yeah, it stinks. I mean, it really just stinks. And I feel for the Avalanche players. I feel for the coaches. Yep. And I feel for the fans, because the fans Rachel, when Dallas made it 4-1 last night with 10 minutes to go, 50% of them went to the exits. I mean, you're talking about people who spent $500, $600, $700 to watch a hockey game last night, and they're leaving with 10 minutes to go. That has to be a feeling that makes you sick this morning, and honestly will make you sick all summer, because their season, in all likelihood, will end tomorrow night in Dallas.
Okay, so now we go to our Papa Murphy's question of the day. Was this the door closing on this Colorado Avalanche team? And I say that because you can't find yourself a way to get motivated for a game like we saw last night. You got the Nathan MacKinnon out there. You still have a Cale Makar. Losing Devontae's, obviously, with him being out with an illness, hurt this team defensively. There's no question about it. Mikko Rantanen. But you also have to look at Mikko Rantanen's contract. Like, this offseason is going to be massive for this Colorado Avalanche team. And if you are having to pay a guy or look at the cap space for somebody who's not even on the ice and will probably never be on the ice for your team again, was this the final straw? Was this the door closing on this Avalanche team who could have been so, so great?
Well, certainly this year it's closed. It is slammed shut. They, as I've said a couple times, they will not win the Stanley Cup. I'm not ready to close the title window, though, because you still have Nathan MacKinnon and Cale Makar. You still have two of the best 6 players on earth. But you're right. Mikko's coming up relatively soon. He's been a ghost in these playoffs for most purposes. He had a great game 3 in Winnipeg, or game 5 in Winnipeg in the third period. He scored the goal in game 3 against Dallas, but we all know that was Nathan doing all the work, and Mikko just cleaned up the trash. So, yeah, I mean, they have a ton of questions. Yeah, I'll slam it shut this season. This season's done. It's done. Tomorrow night is the funeral in Dallas. But Rachel, they have Nathan MacKinnon and Cale Makar under contract for a long, long time. Yeah. As long as you have Nathan and Cale on your team, you can win a cup. Now it's up to Chris MacFarland, and it's up to Joe Sakic. Chris MacFarland, of course, if he is still with the Avalanche. I think we'll talk about that some other day. We have too much to get to today. But it is up to management to reshape this roster around their 2 best players. That's what you have to do. So, no, as long as you have Nathan and Cale, in my opinion, the window's not closed. It seems like you maybe disagreed with that notion.
I am just getting this feeling and watching this playoffs that everything has to go right for those 2 players. And that may sound, well, of course, Rachel, everything has to go right for any team. But it feels like that they need the supporting cast out there. Like, they can't just carry this team all on their own. So I get it when you say you still have 2 of the best players out there. Trust me. But Nathan MacKinnon hasn't been, this bright shining star in these playoffs. It was Valeri Nichushkin. And Cale Makar, to be honest, I think he's played relatively bad in this entire playoff series. So I don't know. I'm starting to worry that this is the door closing, and that's really hard to believe. When we talked about this, after the cup, we were like, they could win 2 or 3. And it just shows you how hard it actually is to win back-to-back or multiple titles in a season or in a season of hockey, a season of life. So I don't know. I just don't feel super confident in that statement anymore. Now, of course, we're in a therapy session right now, so I'm a little bit down in the dumps. But they went all in on their chips at the trade deadline. Like, they tried really hard to make a run for this team. But let's be honest, there was no guarantee that they were even going to beat the Stars, even if Val was out here, because they have not played good hockey so far for this series. They have yet to lead in a playoff game this entire time. So I don't know. I just don't feel as confident as you do, but I'm hoping you're right and I'm wrong.
Yeah, I mean, you and I could have this conversation in September, right? And see how the roster is rebuilt. Maybe we're talking about Gabriel Landeskog coming back at that point. Like, there is still so much up in the air that I'm not going to make any grand declarations the day after, honestly, one of the worst playoff. I've been an Avalanche fan since 1996 when I was 6 years old. Like, last night was rock bottom, right? Like, there was moments, like when they lost to Vegas in 2021, that felt like rock bottom. Well, guess what? This is the real rock bottom. So yeah. I catch myself on May 14th being like, they're done. It's never happening again. The core blew it. The window's closed. MacKinnon will leave with 1 cup. Like, I'm not saying he's going to win a second cup, but I'm also saying let's take a deep breath and let's revisit this in 4 months before we truly decide that the window has shut.
Trust me, I'm with you. Like I said, this is just a therapy session for all of us. So I do appreciate it. Real quick, though, we got a massive game 5 tonight between the Nuggets and the T-Wolves. How are you feeling?
Well, I wrote about it at denversports.com this morning. It was my column that if the Nuggets win tonight, Rachel, I think they're going back to back. The dirty little secret is the Nuggets and Wolves are two of the best 8 teams remaining in this field to steal from March Madness. It sucks that this is an Elite 8 matchup, right? Like, this should at minimum be the Western Conference Finals. Of course, you have to throw Boston in there. I understand Boston is very, very good, but the East is a joke. And you and I have watched a lot of Oklahoma City and Dallas. I'm not scared of Oklahoma City or Dallas. The winner of the game tonight, I'll just simplify it. The winner of the game tonight is going to win this series, right? Game 5 winner in a 2-2 series wins 83% of the time.
Yep.
And the winner of the game tonight is going to the NBA Finals. And the winner of the game tonight, there's a darn good chance will be NBA champions. So, I mean, obviously it's huge. I can't understate the importance of this basketball game.
Yep.
The Nuggets have to break the curse, though. No home team has won a game in this series. At some point, you have to send the paying fans home happy.
Please.
The Nuggets need to do that tonight. Rachel, they have the Timberwolves on the ropes, right? They hit them.
Yep.
They got to knock them out tonight. Let's go Nuggets.
Please, you talk about the fans. I'm also begging for the media members because so many of us have been at Ball Arena going home disappointed as well. So I totally get it. I am also sending all the good vibes, and I cannot wait for the game. It's going to be a super late one, 8:30 p.m. tip-off, which will probably be closer to like 8:40. So buckle up, everybody. Drink an espresso or martini or something at like 4 o'clock this evening because it's definitely going to be a late one. Will Petersen, always a pleasure. Thank you so much for doing this therapy session with me. I appreciate you.
Yeah, of course. And Jokic gets his MVP trophy tonight. Get there early.
So true. So true. Oh my gosh. With all of the drama, I've completely forgot. So yeah, let's watch the MV3 get his trophy. It's going to be a great night. Hopefully we're talking about a Nuggets win tomorrow morning. To everybody, thank you so much for spending a little bit of your time with both Will and I, and to, loving all of our coverage. We saw the comments and stuff, so we appreciate it so much. So love you guys so much, and we will see you tomorrow morning. Bye, everybody.